guys, happy Sunday and welcome back for another recipe. So on my community tab earlier this week, I put a poll up asking what recipe you guys wanted to see next, and I just gotta say you guys are my kind of people because you chose bread pudding, which is full of all of my favorite things like bread, sugar, butter, cream, all of these amazing ingredients in one recipe. If you're tuning into my channel for the very first time, my name is Tamisha, and here I love to share recipes and everything food related. And I just wanted to say, you guys, wow. I checked my numbers, and over the past 2 weeks we have grown by a little over 1,000 more subscribers in just 2 weeks. So that is incredible and amazing. I am so happy to have each and every one of you here, and I just wanted to say that if you're joining in on my channel, usually my style of tutorials on my channel is more of a I want you to feel relaxed and inspired in the kitchen, and so I tend to go into a lot of detail and explaining because I really want you to feel like you're right here with me preparing these recipes. So if that is something that you enjoy, I really hope that you stick around. If you are not subscribed already, I definitely would love for you to stay and hit that subscribe button, and let's jump right into our bread pudding ingredients. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and go over our ingredients for our bread pudding. Let's jump right into that. And as we go along with the recipe, I'll give you the exact measurements. But we're going to need some butter today, as well as some milk. We're going to be using white and brown sugar. We're also going to be using some eggs. And in here, this is completely optional, but I like to add in some raisins. This is about 3/4 cup of raisins if you choose to use it, but you can absolutely leave that out as well. We're going to need some vanilla extract, and we're also going to use some ground cinnamon, but you can use nutmeg or cinnamon, or both would be great, whichever one you have. And then we're also going to be using this loaf of brioche bread. So now typically with bread pudding, the wonderful thing about it is that you can take old ingredients that you may not have used in your kitchen, like your bread. You can use stale bread, or they call it day-old bread, but I didn't have any, but I'm going to use brioche bread, which is actually really great for bread pudding anyway because it's nice and eggy and rich. It's really good, but I'm going to show you how to dry your bread out just a bit. Also going to need a pan. So this is a 9x13 little casserole dish, and that we're going to bake our bread pudding off in. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our recipe. To prepare our bread for our bread pudding, we need to go ahead and dry it out just a little bit since we're using fresh bread. And I saw this trick on the Preppy Kitchens YouTube channel, where he just suggested to go ahead and cube your bread and then put it in the oven to get some of the moisture out. So I have my oven preheated to 200 degrees, and then what I'm going to do is just cube up my bread and then put it on my baking sheet just for a few minutes, maybe about 10 to 15 minutes, just to dry it out. You don't want to toast your bread, you just want to dry it out just a bit. I also wanted to mention what I also did was took my raisins and I covered them with just a little bit of apple juice, and what this is going to do is just plump up our raisins so that they're nice and juicy and plump for our bread pudding. If you have rum, brandy, whiskey, you can definitely soak your raisins in that, or you can even do it in some hot water. But I have apple juice today, so that works just fine, just to get some of the juiciness and plumpness back into our raisins. So we're going to have that soaking while we prepare everything else. So for our bread, only thing we're going to do is just go ahead and start cutting it down, because we want to cube this, and we're using the entire loaf of bread, ends and all, for our bread pudding. And you just want to, they don't have to be neat, so you can even tear it if you want to. You don't actually have to cut it. You can tear it, it's fine. They don't have to be neat pieces, but since I'm, filming this, I figured I'd try to make it look as neat as possible. Bread pudding is like really, it's one of those treats that you can use as a dessert. You can top it with some ice cream. I'm actually going to be making a vanilla sauce for ours today, but also it's great for breakfast as well. You can heat it up in the morning with your coffee. Oh my goodness, it's so good. But I remember my dad used to always talk about how much bread pudding was his favorite thing to ask his mother for when he was a little boy. It was like his favorite, I guess, childhood treat. And he would always ask his mom to make him bread pudding, and he couldn't like pronounce bread pudding when he was little, so he would be like, oh, I used to ask him, can you make me some bread pudding? Can you make me some bread pudding? So that's how he said he used to say it when he was a kid. So we'll make this today in his memory. We have our bread cubes on our baking sheet. We're going to pop this in the oven on 200 for about 15 to 20 minutes. Remember, we are just drying out our bread. We don't want to toast it. We just want to dry it out a bit. And then what we're going to do next is start working on our custard. In my pan, I have a half a stick of butter that I've melted down. And this is on like a medium low. You don't want it up too high. So I have a half a stick of butter melted down. What I'm going to do is add to that 2.5 to 3 cups of milk. And then I'm also going to add in 3/4 cup of sugar. So what we want to do is we want to start heating our milk all the way through. You don't want it too hot, like you don't want to scorch the milk. So you want to just keep it moving around in your pot, but we want to just heat it all the way through so that our milk is warm. And then while it's heating, our sugar is going to start to dissolve a bit as well. So just keep it moving in there, making sure that it doesn't start to scald on the bottom of your pan. And once this is heated all the way through, we'll go ahead and finish off with adding our eggs. Our milk is heated all the way through. It's just warm. And the reason why you don't want to make your milk too hot is because we're going to add it into our eggs. And if we add hot milk to our eggs, then we got scrambled eggs. And that is just not going to be great for your bread pudding. So in my bowl, I have 4 eggs that I just whisked together just to break them up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pour in our milk and sugar and butter into our bowl. So let me go ahead and actually let me angle you guys a little bit better before I do that. So we're going to go ahead and get our milk into our eggs, and you just kind of move it along as well, just to make sure that it's getting tempered all in through the eggs are getting tempered. So that we have no curdling, but this is not hot at all. It's just very warm. It's very warm to the touch, actually. Okay, so we just want to give this a good whisk. Now for the good stuff. We're going to add in some vanilla as well as some cinnamon. Now, if you were going to make this with like rum, like I mentioned earlier, you can add that in at this point as well. But I'm going to add in my vanilla. I would say about 1 tablespoon, but if you've been on my channel for a while, you know that I am very heavy-handed with vanilla, and I generally do not measure it. So we're going to add a good, generous amount of vanilla. We're going to add in some cinnamon, about a teaspoon of cinnamon, maybe 2 teaspoons. Okay, and then we're also going to add in just a pinch of salt, not too much. We're just going to balance out some of that sweetness with the salt. Okay. And if you can tell with your bread pudding, it's very similar to French toast, right? This is pretty much like a French toast batter, but just, you know, up on another level, right? Okay, so this is looking good. What I'm going to do now is get our bread out of the oven. It is nice and dry. We're going to get it into our casserole dish, and then we're going to start getting this custard poured all on top of it. So let's start putting our bread pudding together. Our bread is nice and dried out. You can kind of hear it when it hits the pan. Okay, so This is coming together nice. We're going to get all of this in, and I did spray the bottom of my pan just a little bit to keep it from sticking. And my oven is also preheating to 350 degrees because we're going to get this baked off on 350 for about 45 minutes. Guys, I had to take some of my bread out because I almost forgot about our raisins that were soaking over here. So I went ahead and drained the raisins, and we're going to just kind of layer the raisins in between, just because I don't want them to soak all the way down to the bottom once we put our egg and milk mixture in. So I can't believe that. Okay, so now we're going to get the rest of our bread into our pan on top, and then we'll put the rest of the raisins on top of this once we finish getting our bread in here. Now what we want to do is get our bread drenched in our egg mixture. And we just want to pour it all over the top because we want all of our bread to be soaking up all of this. Oh my goodness. As you can already tell, this is going to be so good, right? This is going to be so good. I know why my dad asked for this all the time when he was a little boy. Who wouldn't, right? Oh my gosh. So we just want to pour this all over, get every single piece of bread coated, because we don't want this to be dry at all. And if you feel like you don't have enough, you can just heat up a little bit more milk, add you maybe another egg, just to make sure you got enough to cover. It just depends on how much bread pudding you are making, but I think this is going to be more than enough. And you don't want to bake it right away because you want to give your bread a chance to absorb all of this goodness, right? So you want to get it in your pan, push it down a little bit just to make sure that all of the bread is completely coated and soaking up some of this. We're going to do that in a minute. And you just want to let it sit for about maybe 15-20 minutes before you start to bake it, just to make sure. And then you can just take your your spatula and just kind of push down. And I got a little bit more mixture reserved over there. Oh, I'm saying over there like you guys know where over there is. Over on the table. So I'm going to grab that and go ahead and pour that on top as well. But as you can see, there's still, you guys can see that. See that right there? It's kind of pooling, so we just want to make sure that all of that gets soaked up. So this is ready to go into the oven. Our bread has soaked up all of our liquids. Our oven is preheated to 350 degrees. We're going to let this bake for about 35 to 45 minutes, just until it has set up. We're starting on our sauce. In my pan, I have a half a stick of butter that's melting down. And then I also have about 1/4 cup of sugar and 1/4 cup of brown sugar. We're going to add that in. I'm just going to whisk just a little bit to get our sugar incorporated. You don't want this on too high because we're also going to add in 1 egg. So just like with our bread pudding, we don't want our egg to start scrambling. So that's why we want to do this on a low heat. But I have 1 egg that I'm also going to whisk in as well. And we're going to keep it moving the entire time just to get the egg tempered in. We're also going to add in some more of my favorite. You know, I got to have some vanilla in here. Okay, so we're going to add in about 1 tablespoon of vanilla. And then we're just going to continue to let this cook on a medium to low heat. And as you can see, our sauce is starting to thicken up. I'm going to let it go for about 2 to 3 more minutes continuing to stir the entire time. Last thing we're going to add into our sauce is a touch of heavy cream. Not too much because we don't want to thin it out. We're just going to add that in, probably about, that looks like about 3 tablespoons should be good enough. And if your sauce is too thick, just add in a bit more cream to thin it out. Add in just a splash more. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take this off of the heat, let it cool for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to get this drizzled all over the top of our bread pudding. Well, here is our sauce, and what we're going to do now is just drizzle this all on top of our bread pudding. Oh my gosh. Guys, that is it. That is our bread pudding, and you can put as much or as little bit of your sauce on there as you would like. I am about to cut into this and enjoy a slice, but I wanted to close out by saying thank you guys so much for tuning into another video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you give this recipe a try, I definitely would love to hear from you down below in the comment section. And until the next recipe, you guys take care. See you next time.